What's going on? It's Mark Nizzle here. Wanted to take a moment to do a little bit of a Q&A. Just some popular questions that we've been seeing over the last couple weeks. Maybe just a little bit of a in-depth feedback, some analysis, some different things to take in and consider when asking some of these questions. So these were the big three questions that I've seemed to be getting asked in the last couple weeks. Figured we'll take a little bit of a deep dive. So question number one is what hero should be my priority? Question number two is what hero should get my rare ascension materials, like my 4-star materials, my 5-star materials, and just some feedback on that. And then I get a lot of questions around what should my war team feeding look like, in preparation for a war. So let's kind of start off. We'll start off with what hero should be my priority in terms of feeding. And maybe my focus in the game. So let's just assume that you did a 10 pull from the portal and you got 2 5-stars. And let's say you got Aslar and you got the new hero of the month. Just a good scenario. 2 red heroes, 2 different things going on. The first thing that I would do when I would get those heroes is I would probably go right here and start looking through the summon portal, finding those heroes, seeing if I can find them in here, so I can kind of compare them, what they will look like when they're maxed. Of course, the one that I'm looking for is not there. So let's go Aslar. The first thing I'd probably look at would be in the top right, like what is their max power when they're max leveled. So this Aslar would be 757 power, and he's also in the barbarian class. So when a hero is maxed out, it's always good now to consider what class they are. You don't want to have too many barbarians because the emblems become very expensive. So that's one of the things that I would consider as well. So looking at the hero, I would kind of compare them and kind of see how they fit into my lineup. So let's assume that we pull this Aslar. He deals 205 damage to everybody. He's slow, but all enemies are getting a 360 damage over 6-turn burn from a lingering ailment that he's going to put on to everyone. I have this hero. I think he's very great. But he might not be a priority for everyone. Giving an example, you might have a Colin, you might have a Jahanger, and maybe the last thing you need right now is a slow mana. So that's his info there. Now let's take a look at the hero of the month. This is Anzo, I guess, or Anzoa. I'm not sure on how to say his name. But, the first thing that sticks out in the top right is this hero's 770 power. So, you're long term, in theory, this is going to be a better hero, meaning that he's going to be more powerful. He's dealing damage to everyone. He's not doing the lingering burn damage that, you see with Aslar. But he's average mana speed, 215% damage. And get this, he's doing healing for each one of the allies on the team of 20% of that damage that he's dealing. Total damage, if there's 5 heroes on the other side, he's going to bring in some pretty nice healing. How I read that is that it's based on total damage dealt. So if there's only one ally left over there and he does a special, you're not going to get too much healing on that. But, a full team over there would certainly bring in a lot of healing. And he's resisting anything that's going to slow down his mana generation or stop it. So, heroes like Hell, which you see a lot in the Diamond Arena, will freeze mana generation, and that kind of just leaves you vulnerable and out to dry. So, comparing these heroes, I would say, head-to-head, just comparing the heroes, not knowing anything else about your team, this would probably be the priority over there. If you're weak on like healers and you pull out different heroes, like maybe like a Vivica or like a June, those heroes kind of match up pretty close side by side. Maybe, a Vivica you might need a good healer and she's one of the best in the game. She might be your priority there. So that's just some feedback and some of the things that we kind of look at when we're offering advice is at the end of the day, when you're at the final spot with those heroes, which one will probably be the better investment long term. So I'm logged into my Bandersnatch account, and the reason why I did this was I wanted to touch into the next one. A popular question is, okay, Mark, I have two heroes that are 5-star. They're at 370, and I had the materials. Who should be the priority and who should get the materials? So let me show you some situations that I have going on, and some things that I've kind of been hesitant on pushing the button on. So right now, this would be probably my good example here is that I have Rumpelstiltskin and I have Aegir. They're both at 3rd and 70, so they're both waiting on their final. And if we go to Ascend, you'll see that, I have plenty of capes, I have all the materials, but obviously with the lack of telescopes, I can only do one. So who would be the better guy? And but my advice would be this: is that it really depends on your needs. So like let's take a look at my team. I have two really good tanks. So I have Ares up here on my top team, and I have Guinevere. They're both some of the best tanks in the game. Am I at the point where I really need like a third tank in there? I mean, it would be a great war defense, but other than that, like how often would I be really using that hero? So that's some of the questions that I ask. And then I also have Rumple, and he's kind of like a wild card. He does 3 random things, and they're all great. But when I evaluate him and I put him on a test run, if I need him to do a skull, he might pull a cross out, or he might do stars, and it might not be the outcome I want. So that's kind of why I've been hesitant, is because I'm always under evaluation of making smart decisions with my heroes. And then also this, I have a Magni down here. He's one of the best snipers in the game, but he's kind of weak on the shield. So I could ascend him, and then maybe I would start looking at the fighter class. I don't have anybody in the fighter class. Maybe he would be a good investment. So I like to force myself into these kind of decisions and evaluate the heroes on an even scale. Okay, they're all at that point where they're waiting, and now it's kind of like a try it before you buy it kind of deal. Because, when's the next time I might have 6 telescopes? I mean, I've been playing for a year, and I only have, one blue hero ascended, and now I'm at the point after a year of, having telescopes again. So I would say, it's like, well, once a year you might be able to get all those if you're not buying. So that's the kind of stuff that I always say is that, force yourself into a situation where, you got some options, you're evaluating 2 to 3 heroes before you go up there. And that's even important if, I would say it's more so important if you're buying in the game. Because, maybe, I'm just scrolling down a little bit. Maybe I'm thinking, hey, I got sturdy shields for Hansel, and and I go ahead and I just put him on Hansel the second that he's available, and then I go out to the portal and I pull an Alberic. Now I gave all my shields to a 4-star, and I wasn't planning adequately for tomorrow. So I would say just don't ever rush into the first hero that needs them, just to give them to them because they're ready and waiting. Take them on a test drive, see how they work out. Do they fit your game? What is your need? And then, compare it to what you see in the portal. Is there a green hero that would, you would hit a home run with? Also, maybe like a 4-star or a 5-star. And, maybe just worth holding on to some things for a couple days. Is there an event coming up? Is there anything on the Discord that's kind of leaking out some stuff that, you kind of got your eye on, especially if you're buying? So that covers those 2 things. I hope that stuff helps. The last thing I wanted to talk about is priority on war feedings. This is another common question. War requires 30 unique heroes. I figured I'd show you from a big picture perspective of, some of the challenges I'm up against at Bandersnatch. And maybe some of the priorities and some of the questions that I would probably ask here as well. So first thing I would say is that if you're at Bandersnatch, we vote once a week on war tanks. So I'm just going to go over to our war board really fast. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So the center hero on both on our opponent's team and our teams are all the same color. So you'll see that they're using a yellow tank, and Bandersnatch is using purple tanks. So we vote on this stuff, and whatever color wins, would obviously be the tank that we would want everybody to go on. So that would probably be my first thing that I would say for war is, do you feel like that there's another color that's kind of creeping up? Are you ready for that purple tank and stuff? Maybe if you see something that is kind of trending on the votes, even if it's losing, maybe to start prepping for that. Like, hey, I really need a purple hero, because if this purple tank vote wins, I'm going to need a nice purple tank. For a while we've been doing blue tanks, so we're all pretty good as an alliance on blue. So that would be one of the things I would say. You obviously need 30 heroes, so one of the things that I've been working on for the last couple weeks is my top teams, and now I'm going back to my bottom teams. So I finally got all 6 war teams with heroes of 600 power or more. And I like to sort my war teams by rainbow. I'm also working on a different thing too, is I want to start planning for 8 rainbow teams and 9 rainbow teams for my war bench. So we're looking at either 42 or 48 heroes. And the reason why I say rainbow teams is I want to have a deep bench to where I can do some color stacking. So like in this war in particular, we're going against yellow tanks. So I would like to almost run 2 purples for every yellow tank. I get 6 war flags. So in theory, I would probably need 12. I got 6 purples that are 600 power, but that's only going to cover my first 3 flags if I double down on purple. So I'm kind of looking at going towards 8. So then I'm using 4 flags of 2-2-1 kind of defense, so a little bit of color stacking, and ideally I'd like to get the 9 teams of 600 power. But right now my big focus is that I want to get everybody on these bottom 3 at 625. So one of the things that I kind of do for my feedings is I kind of sort by a couple different things. I sort by power, and I sort by elements. So like my weakest color by far is red. I go from 740 to 616. That's a 130 point drop. So I've been really working on these reds, getting them fed, and they'll probably be like my first ones that I'll start maxing out between these 4 stars and things. So I do that a lot, and I also do this, is that I'll sort by power, and my weakest hero will always be on the right. So I got Frida, Evelyn, and Atamos. These are my weakest heroes on each one of these 3 teams I got locked in. And like what I'll do is I'll feed this hero like Frida until she's 607, and then that Khalil will slide over, and that Ryguard will slide over, and whoever's in that rightmost position on each team will kind of feed. So right now I'm going to feed Frida, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Her talent's maxed out, so I really don't care about who she gets fed, so I'll give her like a 10 feed here, and I'll just hit through that because we don't need to see it. And now I'm sorting, and you can see how she's moved over, and now Khalil is now that 606. But I'm also comparing against my team, so a 604 Evelyn would be my weakest hero between my 3 teams, so I would likely feed her next. And this is just a little strategy I do, don't put much thought into it. Just always kind of keep the weak moving on up, and the lineup will always shuffle for you. So now if we go back, you can see that she's now 607. She's the weakest on that 4th team. But, the next feeding when I have heroes would go back to Khalil. And you'll start to see that, you start covering a little bit of a gap. And you're slowly just kind of working your teams the right way. So hope that stuff helps. A little bit of a longer video than normal. But I think that this answers a lot of good questions, and I'll give you guys some good insight on what we're doing over at Bandersnatch. All right, guys, talk to you in a bit. See ya.